I think that this region in particular has one of the nation's richest agricultural heritages.
And I think that in Philadelphia, you, a small producer, can have a big impact. And that's really important.
There are groups who are taking over abandoned properties and turning them into green projects.
If I've never seen fresh greens or carrots, then all I know is I'm going to eat processed food for the rest of my life. Local farming changes all that.
You buy it from me, I can tell you where I grew it. I can show you where I grew it.
People are learning what the importance of local is, and they want to support their local farmers and local small businesses, and definitely keep their money circulating in their community.
A lot of restaurants that are serving seasonal food, local food.
You know, this whole local sustainability thing is not just a trend that's going away.
This is not a gimmick. This is real life, and this is what people have done for generations and generations and generations.
It'd be great to have every neighborhood have access to local food, and we're a long way from that.
There's a lot of what they call food deserts, which is, it's crazy when there's so much food that's grown within 10 miles of here.
Access to fresh food means that you don't have these food deserts, that you have people from across a broad economic spectrum that have the ability to get foods that are seasonal, local.
We have a very active local food movement here. I think Philadelphia was ranked really high in terms of farmers markets. There's a lot of the local food that's starting to get into bigger markets like supermarkets.
I first learned about the food desert problem, and I didn't see the grocery industry embracing this problem. I thought that someone needed to be the one to show the industry and the world that this is a solvable problem.
We want people in low-income and moderate-income neighborhoods to have more and more choices.
A lot of people are taking kids from schools out to local farms to actually see where their stuff is growing. And if one kid eats better, more wholesome, he's got a healthier life.
A group from Temple came here. They wanted to help the community to change their diet a little bit because nobody was selling fruits or vegetables. So I said, sure, I'll try it. Kids will grab an apple now before they will grab a bag of chips. They don't have to go far away to get these things. They just go to the corner store.
If I can be part of changing the environment so that people have access to something as basic a necessity as food and plants and community, then I've done my job for the day.
Teens for Good is a youth-led community garden and farming business. Teens for Good grows fresh, local, healthy produce to sell at local restaurants, corner stores, making food accessibility in low-income neighborhoods a little easier to get to.
Feels real good because you're walking through the market and you say to your mom, "Hey mom, I helped growing up that," So it's a wonderful experience.
By keeping agriculture in the community, it gives you endless amounts of possibilities.
We grow our own food and then we harvest it and then we sell it to the people. The profit goes right back into the community.
We want to make people realize that this is not a movement of sorts, it's a common sense thing. We want to feed people, we want people to have access to clean, fair food.
Think about the quality aspect of foods. Good vegetables that we have here. I mean, you got a little taste of everything in Philadelphia.
Local is the backbone of what makes the Reading Terminal Market great. Our slogan is fresh and local every day. It's a place for people from all walks of life, all income levels, class and ethnic backgrounds come to shop for food. It supports the environment, and it makes our city and our region a better place to live.
We all want to be healthy and we all want to live long lives, and the key to that is clean, fresh vegetables and fruits, clean produced meats, free of hormones. It makes people more connected with where their food comes from, and I think that when you have peace of mind of where you're getting your food, then you can be happier.
Cameron Whole Foods started out as the Seven Stars Farm Store, which is a 400-acre biodynamic dairy farm which is located about 1.5 miles from our existing primary store.
Kimberton Whole Foods is really homegrown for grocery stores that started in Kimberton. It is locally owned and does a lot of support of local farmers and organic foods, non-genetically modified foods.
When we can, we look to buy everything we possibly can local. That's just buying directly from the farm. We have an opportunity to work with a cooperative that pulls from a lot of different farms in the Lancaster County area.
I think one of the reasons it's important to buy local, especially when it comes to, I'll just take one thing, for instance, meat. I deal with a lot of the meat that comes into the store, and we of course get meat that comes from other places in Pennsylvania, but we also get beef from a farm called Weaver Valley. They bring us 1 cow at a time, so we order 1 animal. That means only 1 cow is killed. It's butchered according to our order, and then we sell that 1 cow. And I also know who has raised the cow, how the cow was treated. They're very nice people. We see the truck that, comes into the store. I'm the person who puts the meat on the shelf. There's so fewer hands involved in the process that I can feel pretty good about what I'm putting out because I know for the most part how it's been handled.
Not everything at Kimberton Whole Foods is locally produced. Some items come from farther away, but where possible, and as much as possible, we sell locally produced items. So we're trying to bring in items from a closer destination, meaning your food doesn't have to travel thousands of miles to get to you. So in the long term, you're saving fossil fuels in shopping for things that come from a farm down the street as opposed to one in Argentina or New Zealand.
Food miles are basically how far your food travels from farm to plate. And if you're shopping at a normal conventional grocery store, it's about an average of 1,000 miles for, say, a carrot to be harvested and then make it onto your plate at home, which is kind of scary, really, really far, and you don't know where it's coming from, you don't know who grew it, how it was grown. But when you're buying locally, it's a completely different story. A lot of times it's picked a couple days before you buy it. Buying local, because it's cutting down food miles, it's cutting down how far your food has to travel, which obviously is cutting down how much transportation, fuel, money is required to get it to wherever you're buying it from. So maybe it'll only travel by truck or car for 20 miles as opposed to by plane from California to Pennsylvania.
At its best, buy local is within reach of you so that your dollar can make a difference in one of your neighbors' lives or someone who's maybe the next county over or within your state. But I think it's nice, buy local can be trackable. I can see my money going into something that's going to generally affect your community around me.
Buying local food keeps money in the community, whether it's local food or locally made products of any kind. And if they're owned by people in that community, the money then doesn't get siphoned away to some corporate headquarters elsewhere in the country. So it enlivens our local economy because the people who are receiving that money, especially all the way to the top, are more likely to spend it in the community versus someplace else.
Living green definitely starts with food because it's the most basic necessity. You put it into your body, so whatever is on that food or whatever that food eats, if you eat meat, is going into you. So I think it's something that you need to be hyper aware of, and most people just don't even really think about it. They just go down the street. But if you really do think about it and do some research, some of the stuff that's in food can be kind of scary and uneasy. But if you come to a place like Kimberton where it's local and it's local people and they know where their food is coming from, it's a completely different story.
I think it's really important to know where your things are coming from. If you know the farmer or if you know the person who buys from that farmer, you know how it was raised or you know how the vegetables were cared for, you know if they're spraying or not spraying, things like that. So I think as much information as you can know about what you're putting in your body is important. And when you buy local, you just shrink the amount of people involved and you know as much as you can know about your food. And I think that, personally, that's really, really important to me.
What I tend to do is, with the hand that's not planting, I just kind of pull it and I just feed the hand that's planting. And the less you look, you have to look back here probably. We're not going to go that fast, I don't think. But you'll get the hang of it. It's really easy. It's kind of fun too.
It's an unusual way for a farm to get started is to have a group of consumers who say, you know what, we want to have our food grown locally. Here we are in the suburbs, what can we do? After about 2 years of contacting area farmers who were still in business, because most farmers had sold their land to developers at that point, there were still a few farmers in business, and started to talk to them about organic agriculture, sustainable agriculture, and found that no farmers really understood what we were talking about, nor were they interested in the concept. The concept of a CSA was still very new. The Natural Lands Trust heard about our request and knew that there was land in Horsham Township owned by the College Settlement of Philadelphia. This organization had recently undergone a land management plan and decided that they wanted some kind of community farming on their land. The Natural Lands Trust put us together, and we realized that there was a great deal of synergy here. So in May of 2003, we opened a CSA on the land of the College Settlement.
Food insecurity is defined as families not being sure where all their food needs for any given week are going to come from. And the TFAP, SFPP, and Loaves and Fishes food cupboard programs are designed to ensure that families like those have some additional resources for making sure that they're going to be able to put food on their families' tables. Eastern Montgomery County is one of the most affluent areas of the United States of America, not just affluent here in the Philadelphia area, but affluent in the entire United States. That being true, most folks are unaware that there's significant food insecurity in Eastern Montgomery County. The Eastern Montgomery County area that we serve includes the communities of Willow Grove, Rockledge, North Hills, Glenside, Abington, both Abington Township and Abington Village, the borough of Jenkintown, the boroughs of Rockledge and Cheltenham, and much of Cheltenham Township. Approximately 50 families come to us for food assistance each week. In spring of 2009, I was contacted by Margot Bradley of Pennypack Farm asking how they might be of assistance to the Loaves and Fishes food cupboard. Margot explained their program of natural farming approach and told me that they would usually in any given week during the harvesting seasons have leftover fruits and vegetables available that they would like to have distributed through local food cupboard programs. I certainly was immediately intrigued and very interested. Margot and I coordinated to make sure that on Thursday every week that we were able to go to the Pennypack Farm and pick up 2 to 3 bushel baskets. This ensured that all through last summer through late last fall that the families receiving food assistance here at Loaves and Fishes had some fresh vegetables to add to the non-perishable items, which is what we typically distribute to those families.
When we went to evaluate the program by actually visiting the food cupboards, we found that the food was really appreciated. There was no other provider of fresh produce to any of these food banks. And they were thrilled. They could come and pick it up on the day of their distribution and distribute it all that day. Again, they also did not have the kind of refrigeration to be able to keep it for periods of time. So we feel very good about that. That's really the sort of the evolution. We're now in our 8th year. Our lands are producing more and more food. We are very connected to the community. Many of the local churches are involved in the farm and support us in very big ways. And we want to be able to give back to them.
My name is Sean Sealy, and I live on Milky Way Dairy Farms. I'm the son of Kim and Ann Sealy, and my grandpa and my dad are in partnership on this farm. Living on this farm you're not doing the same thing every day. You're kind of surprised what you do.
The farm started out, my grandfather first moved here in 1928, and it was a horse farm at that time. The farm changed dramatically in the 50s and 60s, and as did a lot of farms. That was the age of mechanization and chemicals, and productivity was the real buzzword, and our farm changed from the simple farm that was very sustainable to a more mechanized, more chemically dependent farm. The major changes culminated when I had a close scare after I became a father. My wife and I had our first son, and he was 2 years old, and a little friend of his got near our corn planter that had insecticide boxes on it. I realized right then that this was a real danger posed that could affect a lot of people, including my own family, and that really drove it home to me that we had to make some changes. And we quit insecticides and herbicides cold turkey at that point, and subscribed to some publications through Rodale Press. We became followers of an organization called PASA, and it stands for Pennsylvania Association for Sustainable Agriculture. And PASA is one of the most forward-thinking, visionary organizations in the United States. And since we took that path, we've not been afraid to try any new changes as far as getting rid of mechanization, and to this day we've phased insecticides, herbicides, and chemicals off the farm for the last 12 years.
The way our family's now taking our path, I think it makes me feel about the environment. It makes me feel real good because I know that we actually care about the other people next door and how they get their food, and we're not just going for the money, we're going for the quality of life. We just have a different outlook on life, which I think a lot of people could have, but they just need to be taught.
Probably the sustainable way is more like we used to do anyhow.
Right.
And
so there's no chemicals.
We've had a lot of changes, and I guess it's maybe swing back that way for the small farmer. For the small farmer, it probably is the best way to stay in business.
Because they're just losing, I mean, now they're all eating, but they aren't.
They weren't interested at all this morning.
Right, that's not their first choice anymore.
Because of the changes that Kim has made in the farm, it's now become fun. You know,
right.
Some of the older ways when Sean was little, Sean couldn't go with his dad that much, whereas Dane has been able to trail right along, and you know, it should be fun.
When we started looking at what we were doing, we realized that our cows weren't all that happy all the time, and we started studying cow comfort a little bit. 3 years ago we started grazing corn, and I'd read some articles and talked to some people that had tried it, and we planted a cornfield solely to let the cows graze that. And lo and behold, when we let the first 70 cows into the cornfield, some of the cows went right into the corn and couldn't believe that they were in it, and some of the cows went around the edges of the field and ate the grass along the fence rows. Sustainability is all about taking your resources that you have and making them go on forever. And by not trying to overcome the forces and the elements and the weather, the things that we can't change, it has reduced our stress and also reduced our cow stress. Some modern technology is producing food that is somewhat empty. It has empty calories, that doesn't have the broad range of micro and macronutrients that can be possible when your animals are fed the diet like we're feeding them. A true farmer's legacy should be how their family turns out and how their kids grow up and the kind of food that they pass on through the food chain. And if we're not doing as good a job of that as we can, then we're not doing our job.
I am Brad Grunow, the founder and president of Brad's Raw Chips. A raw food diet consists of fruits, vegetables, seeds, and nuts. Basically everything that grows off of a shrub or a plant. The nutritional difference between raw and cooked food, number one, is enzymes. When you're cooking your food, you're taking a lot of the nutrition out of the food as well. As soon as you go over 115 degrees, you're killing all the enzymes. So most of your nutrients are leaving by cooking things at very high heat. What made me start a raw food diet was I just felt better and wanted to continue that feeling as after I went raw, and just that feeling that I had, and the energy that I had, that kept me going back to it constantly. It just, once I felt good to that, after losing that and the energy that I had, then, I've fallen back off on cooked food many a times, and I felt tired again. I didn't feel as good, and so I would just keep going back to it. And finally, after years of going back and forth, now I'm pretty much, eating 85–90% raw 100% of the time. It was a transition. A lot of people I would recommend, if you ever did go raw, is to gradually, take certain things out of your diet and add more living foods. I don't know, it's kind of not the way I do things. I kind of jumped right in it with both feet. From one day I was eating the American Standard Diet, next time I'm just eating 100% raw. And by doing that, you go through a little bit of a detox, where you're, my face was breaking out. I was, I'd get flu-like symptoms, for the first couple weeks. It was tough, and you just got to stick it out and get over that hump, because that's the first thing that I see so many people do is like, they'll go and then they start feeling sick a week later and like, oh my God, I'm not getting enough protein or something. I'm like, no, just bear it out, And it's a lot of people, it's just very tough to kind of bear that out. Using local foods is very, very important today for many reasons. It's helping your locals, cutting the carbon footprint down to bring all the vegetables to you, where you're stopping the trucking and shipping, and just helping our local farmers, which is another area that's growing 20% a year. The farmers are coming back into play right now. And it is the healthiest way to get the vegetables, especially organic farmers that are not spraying pesticide, which is nothing but poison on your food, and that's what a lot of the farmers are going back to. They're starting to realize that, the benefits of fruits and vegetables, and, so anything you can do to support a local farmer. The number one thing I hear is protein. Everybody feels there's not enough protein in the raw food diet. That's what they hear. But there is a lot of protein, especially in my chips. There's because of the buckwheat groats, which is nothing but protein and fiber. And I get a lot of protein from sprouts in my green smoothies, and there's protein in everything. There's thousands of ways to take raw vegetables and come up with different concoctions to make stuff that is so good that we're just not used to doing. So besides taking care of me, it gives me a ton of energy. I'm never, tired laying on the couch like I used to. Just, I just felt like, it just helps my complexion, my weight. It just makes me feel better, totally. Just make me feel better by not having the weight, and just lots more energy. That's the biggest thing, just a lots more energy. I think the one thing that everybody should know, it is a very fast growing movement right now. It's growing very, very rapidly. Even though the raw food movement is a very small, less than 1%, but it's growing 20–30% a year right now. Since I got into it, I've seen how it's grown so much from 3 years ago to today. With this whole local and the farms and eating local foods, and it kind of just helped that whole raw food movement. It's going back to the local farmers and, just sticking to your community and kind of helping out your neighbor and growing good fruits and vegetables and going to farmers markets and being a community again, helping your neighbor.
My My name is Camilla Rivera-Tinsley, and I'm an environmental educator for the Schuylkill Center for Environmental Education. The Nature Ramblers down on the farm camp is our newest addition to our summer lineup of environmental themed camps. The mission of farm camp is to educate children about the farm as a managed ecosystem. And so we see the organic farm more as an extension of what's already here. Managed ecosystems would be things like your yard or area parks and things like that. A place where humans really interact with the ecosystem on a very intense level. And so we want children to appreciate the fact that it is an ecosystem and understand that there are living creatures and non-living things there and how all those things interact so that they can have a greater appreciation for where their food and for lots of natural resources come from. When we're teaching the children about farming, we make sure that they understand the anatomy of a plant. And we also make sure that they understand what each part of the plant, what its job is. And when they're able to understand that, then they're able to understand how the plant is interacting with the air, how it's interacting with the soil, how it's even interacting with humans, and the different types of things that we add to the environment. And just understanding that process of a plant's life cycle and pollination and the whole interaction even between animals and plants are some of the things that are really important and that we touch on. And also the cultural context of farming, how people and their views have affected the way that we use land, and also how the land affects people. You know, we have to make certain choices when, you know, the environment or the atmosphere isn't sort of working with what our goals are. The campers every day have morning chores, and so what they'll do on our educational portion of the farm is they'll weed in between the rows. Currently they are doing some weed suppression, so we use coffee sacks and newspaper and other natural things that we find around to keep the weeds down. So they're very involved in that. Later on they'll be doing some harvesting. We have peppers and tomatoes growing, so they'll take an active role in that. We definitely teach the kids how important it is to think about the farm in the context of the greater environment, because it's really a piece of everything else that's around us, and it's working closely with the field, and it's working closely with the forest and with the stream that's, you know, right down a couple hundred yards from where the farm is. And it's really important for the kids to understand that in order to respect our earth and to respect these things, we have to farm in a sustainable way. We have to farm in a way that we can continue farming forever, because, you know, our children will need to eat and our children's children will need to eat. So it's really great to get a chance to show the kids why it's so important to do that on a one-on-one basis and have them interact with these kinds of things. We'll be doing soil testing and finding out about, you know, the different things that you need to have in soil so that the plants are healthy, and what happens if you don't have those things in them. And we definitely teach the kids about composting and about really reusing the organic materials that are around, that are in our daily lives and that are at the farm itself. Farming is sort of the bridge. It's the bridge where people can understand that this great world and all these environments and the forest and the soil and the air around us is really what's providing our needs. And it might be hard to connect in a forest how your needs are being met, but it's so easy when you're on a farm to understand that, you know, these abiotic factors, this sunlight, this carbon dioxide, this oxygen that's in the air is creating this wonderful squash that I get to take home and eat. So there's a direct connection between the person and the soil and the ground. And I think that that's really important. And I think it sort of frames the way you think about the world and the ecosystem in a larger context. If you know that what you need comes from the earth, then, you know, you make better decisions about forests, about rainforests, about fields, about all these different ecosystems that we have here, about wetlands. So I think that's one reason why it's really important. And also, I think just in a broader sense, children are sort of losing touch with the outdoors in general. So there's lots and lots of indoor stimulus, lots of electronics and things like that. So this is sort of a way to like tether them back to the ground and say, yes, you have your iPod, but you also need to eat, so maybe you should learn about this too.